Hey there, it's Johnny speaking, and I've already made some videos about how to actually create video adverts that convert, how to test them effectively on a budget, and just the general importance of using video adverts for paid media campaigns like LinkedIn, Meta, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, basically any paid advertising platform whereby the user isn't directly searching for your solution. However, what I haven't done yet is actually talk about how to then analyze the data that you get back once you've actually started to launch them. There have been many situations where I took some initial video ad assets, I tested them, they didn't quite hit the KPIs initially, but upon analyzing that sort of video ad data at the beginning, I then realized that just with a few tweaks and not just reshooting the entire thing, I can actually get that thing to perform higher. So I'm going to be jumping into my desktop soon, and I'm going to be walking you through my sort of framework for analyzing that sort of video advertising data. And I'm going to be doing this on the Meta ad platform, but I really want you to remember that the principles I'm going to be outlining here are not just for the Meta ad platform, but for pretty much any ad platform like YouTube, TikTok, whatever have you, any sort of platform where you can actually see that video ad data. So without further ado, I'm going to be jumping straight in and walking you through how to actually analyze the data to then further your results. Okay, so I'm over in my screen now, and before I actually go through and take you through the live breakdown of the ad account itself, what I want to do is just show you what each of these metrics actually mean at first and sort of give you a breakdown of the fundamental thesis behind it. So if we look over here, forgive the scrappy drawing, but this is kind of what a user journey of a video might look like, right? So if you're scrolling on your phone or on any sort of device or tablet or whatever it might be, you're going to start off watching a video on your social platform. So whether this is YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Meta, whatever it is, you start off with a video, and the vast majority of people are probably going to skip past your ad. So the very first 0 to 1 seconds is probably going to be quite a lot of people viewing simply by virtue of the fact that they're scrolling past. Now, as the video goes on, and you head on into the main section, which might be the pitch, you're going to see a significant drop off. So what's really important here is that you get people's attention from the first get-go, because if you can maximize this, then the chances of you getting more people to actually see the rest of the video increases significantly. TikTok have a fantastic way of being able to view this. If you go on into their TikTok Creative Center and you find some ads, and I've got a separate video showing you how to do this, you can actually go on and actually see what's actually happening at each of the videos. So you can see, for example, you can see the clicks, right? So you can see at first second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds. You can see where the clicks are actually happening and at what rate, for example. You can see at what point they're converting as well. And it just gives you a really good visibility as to what's actually happening. Now, not all platforms have this. Meta, for example, does not have this, but I just want to give you that sort of understanding at first so you can see live what I'm talking about here. So how does that then actually apply to the metrics? So I'm going to be going through the metrics that you can get on Meta. Now, you're going to be slightly limited on other platforms like YouTube. I'm going through Meta now simply because it's quite a popular platform right now. But again, these principles and these systems are really going to apply no matter what sort of platform you're on. So when we're looking at the Meta platform, what you can get are some inbuilt and custom metrics. Now, in terms of the inbuilt metrics here, you can get some unique outbound clicks, cost per unique outbound click. So this will basically tell you, how much does it cost to actually get somebody out of the ad and into your website, your landing page, your inbuilt form, whatever it might be. And you also have, so these are not relevant to the video itself, but I'll talk about the relevance of that later on. Then we have all the video metrics that are going to be important. So we have the video average playtime. Now this video average playtime just simply shows you how much of this video here are people actually watching to begin with, right? So that basically can give you an indication of how engaging the video is. The only problem is that if you take a look at the caveats here, is that this will be skewed by averages, right? And I've got a little infographic that basically shows the problem of averages. The vast majority of people are never going to watch even the first second of a video. So, even getting a number above 5 seconds is actually quite impressive, because the vast majority of people are going to be watching 0 seconds, scrolling straight past. So if you can get this quite even above 5 seconds, that's going to be quite a good indication of how engaging a video is. But again, it's an average. So averages are going to be skewed by, one person, for example, could watch all the way to the end, and that could massively jack up the time at which the average video playtime might look like. So I don't look at this one too much all the time, but sometimes if this jumps out to me, then I'll take a look at it. Hook rate. Now this is a custom Facebook conversion. Hopefully there'll be a recording showing how to actually get that going. So to actually calculate the hook rate, what you're going to want to do is take the 3-second video view. So on the Meta platform itself, this is going to look something along the lines of this here. So if I go over here, if I create a customized column, so you actually have to go into the Meta platform itself and create a custom metric. So to create this, you just simply go on, hit 3 seconds, 3-second video plays and divide that by the number of impressions, and that will give you the number of people that are watching through your video for 3 seconds. So out of the people that this ad has been displayed to, how much of that audience is actually sticking around for the first 3 seconds? And this gives you an idea of how effective your hook is. And then if we move on to the through play rate, now the through play rate is basically Facebook's metric for, I don't know why they call it through play, but that is what Facebook defines as 15-second video views divided by the number of impressions. So the issue that the 3-second video playthrough has is that a lot of people might just hover over a video, so you might be scrolling and you might stop. So it doesn't always 100% guarantee that the people who are stopping at the 3-second mark are necessarily going to be the people that are actually watching your video because they were hooked in or they were engaged from the get-go. The through play rate therefore indicates how sticky the hook might be and how sticky the overall first few seconds of a video might actually be, because it's quite unlikely that somebody's going to be just hovering over a video for 15 seconds. Again, that still happens, but it gives you a good indication of how engaging your video is from the first 3 seconds all the way to then the first 15 seconds. Now, the 25% video views divided by number of impressions, again, this is quite similar, and you can do this all the way from 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. I don't always do this because when you're using percentages, it's quite difficult to compare videos of different lengths. If you use the strict 3-second and 15-second video view rate, then you can actually get a good comparison no matter how long the video is. So sometimes what you can do as well is you can take the number of video plays at 25%. This is an inbuilt metric within the Meta ad platform. You can take that over then into the 50% view rate, and you can see what the drop off is between 25% and 50%. But then again, you have to be careful if you're comparing this against certain videos. So if you're comparing a 1-minute video versus a 30-second video, the 25% mark is going to be at a different stage for the 30-second video than it is going to be at a 1-minute video, right? So for a 30-second video, if I can do mental math, it's going to be, a quarter of whatever 30 seconds is, and for a 60-second video, it's going to be a quarter of that, so that's 15, whereas in a 30-second video, that's going to be 7.5 second mark. So you have to be very careful when you're comparing those metrics. So another metric that I sometimes like to use as well is the cost per 95% video rate. And for this metric, we're looking at 95% video views divided by the total cost. So this gives you a sort of indication of just how cost effective it is to get people to that 95% video point. And of course, if you can get more people to the 95% video point, then that indicates that you're engaging more people at any given time. And typically tend to see that indicates an engaging video overall. So now that I've given you a sort of an introduction on what these metrics indicate and what they mean, I think it's about time that we actually go into a live ad account, actually analyze and see how that actually affects performance overall. So what I've done here is I've grouped together all of the ads in the same ad set. They all have the same targeting at the moment. The only difference is, however, is that they are using different videos, right? And I'm using an account in the Meta ad platform, and the result that we're going for is on Facebook leads. So we're going to be using this metric for the purpose of this demonstration because this is, also an account that I've just got access to share. However, that's not to say that this principle doesn't apply for purchases. I've done this analysis for e-commerce brands or any other business that's selling some sort of product. So if you want to do this analysis with any other type of business, like say an e-commerce or an info product, then you're more than welcome to do so, and you will still be able to see the same sort of insights I'm about to show you here. So without further ado, I'm going to actually start talking through the results here now. So what you'll notice here, for example, is that this ad is by far one of the higher performers. And what I've done is I've actually taken the cost per result. So our aim here is to try and drop the cost per lead to as low as physically possible. And you'll notice here that, these ads here are doing quite well. We were aiming for around 30, and this one has well under half of that metric. So this is one that's been doing quite well. So if we actually take a look here, so one of the metrics that we looked at earlier was the thumb stop rate. So you'll notice here, it's a thumb stop rate, 3-second video view divided by number of impressions, and you'll notice that this actually is quite on the higher end of things, right? So it's a 29%, and as you start going down, as the cost of the on Facebook lead starts to increase, you will notice that the hook rate actually tends to be on the lower side. Not always, of course. This is not a be-all and end-all metric. However, what we do tend to find is that when we do get adverts that have a really strong hook rate, they're much more likely to perform later on down the line. So that's one metric to watch out for. Another is a through-play rate here. So we often tend to find that, with a high through-play rate, we're often going to see ads that perform quite well. So you'll notice here, this one that did quite well, 5.66. So the ones that tend to do quite well often, so again, similar sort of range, £22.80 per lead. You'll notice that the through-play rate tends to be higher. And of course, the ones that don't do as well tend to be on the lower side as well. So this one 55.56 at 3.98%. Now, another thing to note as well is that we tend to find that the cost per video view tends to be lower as well for videos that tend to do quite well. Not always. In this account, it wasn't quite the case. But this is just, again, another metric that you can watch out for. You'll notice here that I've got a metric that I didn't cover here. Now, this is the 50% video views divided from the 25% video views. What this indicates is a drop off between 25% point to the 50% point. So what you can start doing is, say you have a video here, right? And you notice, for example, that once people get to the 15-second point, they tend to stay on. So the drop off is quite low, but the initial hook rate is quite low. In which case, what you can do is you can actually start diagnosing your videos now and actually start saying, okay, well, we know that once people get to, say 30 seconds, they tend to stay on for quite long. Right, so for example, you might have something that looks, obviously, this is definitely exaggerated, but for example, you might have something that looks something like this. So you might have something that has quite a low hook rate, but once people stay on, they don't tend to drop off for quite as much, right? So the middle of the video is actually quite engaging. So once people make it to this point, they stay on for quite long. What you can then do is you can come in and say, okay, well, if we can just increase this point, so if we tell the video editor to cut out this initial beginning part and insert a new, more engaging hook, then we can create a master video that actually surpasses the performance of both, an advert that had a good hook rate but then had a high drop off versus one that had a bad hook but then had a better drop off. Hopefully that makes sense, but this is how you need to start thinking about videos, and you can start using them in a much more modular way. And the advantage of using this method is that you don't always have to discard videos that didn't always work the first time. You can actually start looking at videos and say, okay, well, this one had a good start but didn't quite do so well in the later stages. You don't have to then go back to the drawing board, record another set of videos. You can actually start Frankensteining almost, or mixing and matching certain parts of videos together to actually overall increase the performance of your videos. And you can see that's something that we've done over here. And this is how we've actually managed to drop the cost per acquisition down to significant degrees. And we're going to be continuing to do so and continue to try and beat this for future iterations. Now, I do appreciate that looking through this, you might not be so convinced that these metrics actually matter and they don't really make much of a difference, because in fairness, it might look like I've cherry picked some of this data. So what I want to do is give you a much better oversight as to how this data actually impacts performance and give you a much more realistic understanding of how this data comes into play. And so if I just go over here into my analytics dashboard, so what I've done is I've pulled in all the Meta platform data and I've taken just only the videos of this platform, and I've actually started analyzing this and drawing some graphs here. So what you'll notice is that, so these are the videos that perform the best, right? So the ones that managed to get a less than £31 cost per lead, and the ones that we actually end up spending the most on. You will notice that of these videos, they typically tend to have a higher hook rate. So you'll notice 29%, 29%, 21%, 29%. So they never really dip below that sort of 20% mark. And if we actually draw this on a graph, what we'll notice is that, as the hook rate, so the hook rate being 3-second video views divided by number of impressions, this is by no means, I don't want to paint this as a be all and end all data metric. You can clearly see that the correlation is actually quite weak, and if we actually did sort of a very quick sort of Pearson correlation, again, not the best sort of thing to do statistical analysis. This is not a statistical analysis video. My statistical analysis is actually quite rudimentary. So if any data scientists are watching this, then please try not to cringe too much. We're just marketers here, and we're just trying to get a sort of rough understanding of how these metrics are to be understood. So you'll see here that generally, when we are able to get a video that has around about a 30 to 29% hook rate, we tend to typically see quite good results. Now, as that number tends to drop, you'll notice that actually what happens is, yes, of course, we will get some that get a pretty decent cost per lead over here, but for the most part, it's quite varied. So all you're doing by increasing this hook rate, so it's more like a threshold, right? If you can get to a certain threshold, you are much more likely to actually see success. And we see the same pattern emerging in a lot of other accounts as well, not just this one. Another metric that we can show you here is the cost per Facebook lead versus the through play rate. Now, this is something on this account seems to be showing a lot more promise. And if you see the Pearson coefficient, 0.54, again, we're dealing with stochastic individuals. We're dealing with human beings, and there's never going to be any sort of one perfect formula that can predict human behavior just by looking at the video metrics. And that's not what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to show that there are certain metrics that have an increased likelihood of impacting the results. And if we combine that with our sort of subjective understanding of human psychology, then we can actually get to a better understanding of how to improve video ad performance here. So another interesting one to look out for is cost per 95% video view. This pretty much has no correlation whatsoever for this account, like I mentioned previously, but the throughput rate seems to have some sort of bearing to some degree, right? But the one for this account is definitely the cost per through play, which does seem to make sense as well. So for this, I want to focus mostly on the hook rate and the cost per through play rate. And you'll notice here, if we take a look at the data, like I mentioned previously, if you try and, I'm going to zoom in as well. If you increase the hook rate here, then you will typically tend to increase the performance of the video. So what we ended up doing is to actually improve this metric is, like we mentioned previously, we took the best parts. We took a video that was doing quite well in terms of low drop-off rate, and then we just changed the hooks around multiple times until we could get a version of a video that was actually performing really well. So hopefully that gives you a rough idea of how you can use these metrics to improve your video ad performance and act more iteratively rather than just testing things randomly. You can take initial video content, analyze the data, and pick which parts to improve specifically to then give yourself an overall lift in conversion rate. Another thing to bear in mind as well is that you can get very bogged down with this data, but ultimately you're still going to have to go back and actually create compelling, good video adverts at the end of the day. The reason I'm saying this is because you can fall into a very tempting trap of trying to analyze all the data, and I'm sure, you know, with enough analysis and enough data points, you could probably find some sort of function that, you know, adds the, I don't know, the sigmoidal function curve of the 3-second video play plus the through play rate divided by, you know, the number of impressions squared times by another, you know, sigmoidal function or whatever it is. I've no idea. So you could get very complex with this, and you could technically, in theory, you could predict, you know, the right combination of metrics that would predict the success of an advert down to the T. The only problem is that you then still have to go and translate that into actually creating a good video ad. So we know roughly what sort of factors are going to help improve the conversion rate of a video ad. So for example, the hook rate and the through play rate and just generally making a video engaging. We still have to go in and do that. So be careful about, you know, getting too stuck down on the data. Hopefully this has convinced you that there are various metrics that can help improve the overall effectiveness of a video advert. And if you follow some of the steps in my previous videos, you should be able to then go in and improve the relevant parts to actually give your videos an increase in conversion rate. So hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully you'll be able to then take a look at some of the video ads in a new light and actually use your existing assets much more effectively to improve your conversion rate. If you have any other questions, or if you think I've missed out any metrics, or you may maybe disagree with some of the metrics I'm doing or some of the things that I've said in this video, please feel free to comment below or message me or send me an email. I'll leave all of that contact information in the description below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.